go to chapter 4 and do some problems. Those problems that I'm going to do most probably is in your homework assignments. So it will help you to get a little bit more familiar with your homework assignment exercise problems. So I'm going to go to chapter 4 all the way down. And here is exercise. Okay, so problem number 2, I believe it's in your homework. So it says the company is a diversified manufacturer of consumer goods. The company's activity-based costing system has the following 7 activity cost pool. So ABC system is it provides better allocation of manufacturing overhead to the production, and that will help to kind of calculate the cost of goods sold for each product more precisely and being more competitive in the market. If the cost of goods sold calculation is not accurate, then your selling price in the market will not be accurate either, and it will not be competitive in the market. And all of a sudden you figure out something is wrong, but you don't know what is wrong. Why people are not buying your product? You are not selling it expensive. You are selling it based on a markup on your cost of goods sold, but still people are not buying. And you will realize that, wait a moment, maybe my cost of goods sold calculation is wrong. And you direct material and direct labors, those are two obvious that costs that cannot be wrong. But the thing that might be wrong is the manufacturing overhead. So manufacturing overhead, if you use ABC costing system, it might be a little bit time consuming at the beginning to gather all those data, right? But in some cases, ABC costing system will provide you much more accurate costing balance of cost of goods sold, and it will end up by helping you to be more competitive in the market. And that will normally happen if you have non-homogeneous type of product. If your products are mostly homogeneous, then is ABC system not going to help you that much. So you kind of waste time and energy and data and finding all those information, but it's not going to change that much. But if your product are not same type of product, then ABC system might be very useful. Okay, so here is giving us some information. Let's see. We have cost pool for labor, for machine related, for startups, for production orders, for product testing, for packaging, and general factory. So we have different type of cost pool. Estimated overhead cost has been already calculated for us based on research that the company's employee did. And the expected activity for the next period is like given again based on cost driver. Let's say labor is based on direct labor hours of 8,000. Machine related is based on machine hours of 20,000 estimated, and so on and so forth. So setup, orders, tests, packaging, and again, general factory is used based on direct labor hours again, because it probably makes sense to do that. Okay, so now we have all this data. It says compute the activity rate for each activity cost pool, which that's the next step. And then compute the company's predetermined overhead rate, assuming that the companies use a single plant-wide predetermined overhead rate based on direct labor hours. That's what we learned previously in chapter 1, 2, and 3. So you want to understand that you can have an ABC system, or you can have one predetermined overhead rate for everything in the factory. Obviously, that is easy, but it might not be useful to be competitive in the market in calculation of your cost of goods sold. So let's just compare both of them and you will see. So here I have the calculation for you. The labor cost is estimated to be $52,000 labor-related cost, and expected activity for direct labor is 8,000 hours. So $52,000 divided by 8,000 hours, that gives us a predetermined rate for labor activities of $6.50 per direct labor hours. Machine-related cost pool, it's $15,000 estimated cost, and estimated activity for the next period will be 20,000 machine hours, and that gives us 75 cents cost for overhead per machine hour. Setup, same thing. We're going to do all these calculations again. 42 divided by 1,000, 18 by divided by 500, 48,000 divided by 2,000, all the way down, and you will get all the activity rates for each related activity cost. All you need to do is just have those information ready, and then using those information, you can apply the manufacturing overhead to a specific production. But in general, previously we learned that to do this, instead of all this headache, we can use a simple method. And here is a simple method, having one predetermined rate for everything. So here is estimated overhead cost of $358,800, which is coming from here, right there, divided by direct labor hours that is estimated, 8,000 hours. We have it right there. And we used it also here. So that's what we're going to go with. And therefore, we have $44.85 per direct labor hours, one predetermined overhead rate. So you can use it in the whole factory and get the job done. But again, as I said, if you have homogeneous type of production, that's a good idea. But if your production is not homogeneous, let's say you are not only producing navigation system, you have camera and navigation system. So camera, navigation, those are two different things. So my ABC system might works better in that situation. But only if you are producing navigation system, then that's it. Then predetermined rate, one predetermined rate is good enough. Okay, let's do one more problem. So here is the solution, but let's read it. Let's read it first here. So the company is activity-based costing system, contains the following 6 activity pool that is just provided: labor-related, machine-related, okay? And activity rates are given, so we don't need to calculate anymore. Like in problem 1, we were calculating it. In problem 2, we say it's not, we don't need to calculate it because it's already given. Now, the cost and activity data have been supplied for the following products. So we have direct materials for product J78 and B52. Direct labor again for each one. And number of units that we produce. Now, here says the expected activity for direct labor hours for J78 will be about 1,000 hours of labor. For B52 will be 40 hours of labor. Machine hours will be 3,200 machine hours expected activity. But B52 needs only 30 machine hours. Setup, J78 needs 5 setup, but B52 only 1 setup. Production orders, for G78 we get about 5 orders annually, let's say. For B52 we just get 1 order. For shipment, we ship J78 10 times, but B52 only we ship it 1 time. Okay, so those are things that normally happens in one period of time, let's say in 1 year, and says compute the unit product cost of each product listed above. So using ABC system, you need to now calculate the unit product cost. And okay, so labor related is $7 per direct labor hours. That's 1,000 expected activity. 1,000 activity is times 7 is $7,000. For machine related, that's 3,200 expected activity. Where is that 3,200 coming from? The cost is $3, which is given, but where is that 3,200 coming from? One more time, just look at it. It's coming from right there. See? For machine hours, machine setup and orders and shipment, we're gonna do those two. So here we go. For machine setup, 5, production order 5. So 5 times 160 is 800. For shipment is 10 shipment. 10 shipment times $120 per shipment. That gives us 1,200. And general factory is 1,000 based on direct labor hour. And that's $4 per direct labor hours for general factory cost. So that's $4,000. Add them up. Total overhead assigned is $22,800 to this product J78 manufacturing overhead. But we are producing 4,000 units. So 22,800 divided by 4,000 units. Every unit cost for the overhead is $570. $570. Now, remember, when you produce something, it needs 3 things: material, labor, and overhead. So the material for J78 is $650. For labor is $375 given. And we just calculate the $570. And we got $15.95 unit product cost for J78. You do the same thing for B72. So for the hours of activity expected times $7 predetermined rate, that gives us 280. 30 activity expected times $3 per machine hour, that's 90. And you do all the way down, you get $8.50 overhead cost per unit, and then you put that overhead $80.50 here, and you add them up, direct material, labor, and overhead, and you get $45.50 for B52. So far, so good. So if you don't use activity-based costing, all of a sudden this cost will be different. And if the cost is not accurate like this, then your selling price will be different. And if selling price is different, guess what? You will not be able to sell your products competitively in the market. Okay, so it's some cases that those products are not homogeneous. ABC costing system will provide you better data. Okay, let's do one more. Again, these are all your homework problems, okay? So pay attention to it. So here we go. The company makes 2 products, product H and L. Product H is expected to sell 40,000 units next year, and product L is expected to sell 8,000 units next year. A unit of either product requires 0.4 direct labor hours. The company's total manufacturing overhead for the year is expected to be $1,632,000. Required. Companies currently applies manufacturing overhead to product using direct labor hours as the allocation base. If this method is followed, how many overhead costs would be applied to each product? And you see each product needs direct labor hours of 0.4. So it will be almost the same allocation, right? because that's the same direct labor hours. Compute the both overhead costs per unit and the total amount of overhead costs that would be applied to each product. In other words, how much overhead cost is applied to unit of product H and product L. How much overhead cost is applied in total to all units of product H and product L. 2, management is considering an activity-based costing system and would like to know what impact this change might have on product cost. For purpose of discussion, it has been suggested that all of the manufacturing overhead be treated as a product level cost. The total manufacturing overhead would be divided in half between the two products, with 1,816,000 assigned to product H and 816,000 assigned to product L. If this suggestion is followed, how much overhead cost per unit would be assigned to each product? Explain the impact on units product cost of each of the switch in costing system. Okay, so here we go. Number of units produced is 40,000 units and 8,000 units. Direct labor per unit time is 0.4 hour and 0.4. So direct labor hours for 40,000 units of production times 0.4, we need 16,000 direct labor hours for H and 3,200 direct labor hours for L. Combined is 19,200 direct labor hours. The manufacturing overhead is given to us that is estimated to be 1,632,000, and estimated direct labor hours we just did in here, it would be about 19,200 hours. That means the predetermined rate would be for manufacturing overhead would be $85 per direct labor hour, and that's just a predetermined rate. Now, manufacturing overhead applied per unit would be based on direct labor hours, obviously, and that's in this scenario is 0.4 times 85. That's $34, and 0.4 again times 85. That's another $34. So as you see, because they use the same direct labor hours, so they get the same manufacturing overhead. Number of units produced is 40,000 units, so times 34, that will be 1,360,000 for product H and $272,000 manufacturing overhead to product L, which if you combine this, it will be exactly equal to your estimated manufacturing overhead. Now, using the proposed ABC system, overhead costs would be assigned as follows. Total manufacturing overhead is 816,000 and 816,000. Total 1,632. One more, $1,632,000, which is again same as here. Okay, the unit production is 40,000 units for product H. That means manufacturing overhead per unit ends up to be $20.40. Here was how much? Based on regular one predetermined rate was $34. But here all of a sudden becomes $20. You see, that's about $14 different in manufacturing overhead cost application to every single unit of product H, and that's significant. And here the manufacturing overhead was for product L $34, but when you divide 816 by 8,000 units of production, that means production manufacturing overhead application will be $102 for product L, which compared to before was just $34. That's a big, huge difference. So as you see, because of using ABC system, all of a sudden now you can easily see the difference in manufacturing overhead cost between product L and product H, and those two calculations will significantly change the overall cost of goods sold for each unit. And because cost of goods sold is different, then your selling price will be different, and then your selling price hopefully will be more more competitive compared to other competitors in the market. Make sense? Okay, since you like it, this is the explanation. You can read it if you like. Just stop the video and read it. But that's overall what I just said. Oh, one thing that is interesting, and you might get even a question somewhere, I don't know, either in my class or in a CPA exam, is this one. Note that on a per unit basis, the impact is much greater for low volume product L, than for high volume product. So what that means is, if we go back in product L, you see it's a low volume product, right? See, and product H is high volume product. So if you use ABC system, the manufacturing overhead will go from high volume product to low volume product. So you see here, the manufacturing overhead cost went from high volume product to low volume. So low volume product got more manufacturing overhead cost per unit. Make sense? From high to low. And to remember this, I think always about waterfall. I say water comes from high all the way down to low. That's how water flows, right? In a waterfall. So manufacturing overhead is something like that. So manufacturing overhead in an ABC system normally will flow from high volume product to low volume product. All of a sudden here you see that flow goes from high volume product to low volume product. Just remember that in case you get a multiple choice in regards to ABC system, either in my course or upper level course if you go to 4-year college or even a CPA exam. Okay, let's do one more so you have less headache in your homework. Number 5. Company uses an activity-based costing system. At the beginning of the year, the company made the following estimates of cost and activity for its 5 activity cost pool. So we have labor-related cost pool, purchase order cost pool, parts, board etching, and general factory. Activity measure cost driver for labor is direct labor hours. For purchase is number of orders. For parts are number of parts. For board etching is number of boards. And for general factory, we use just machine hours. That's fine. If they believe that's a good one, we stay with that. Expected overhead cost for each one of those activity cost pool has been already gathered and given to us. Expected activity also has been already gathered and given to us. So everything is almost, the hard part of time-consuming part is already provided to us. Okay, so this is the time-consuming for company, right, to gather all this data, but it's given to us. So our job is to compute the activity rate for each of these activity cost pool. Then, number 2, the expected activity for the year was distributed among the company's 4 products as follows. So product A, direct labor hours. Product B, direct labor hours. Product C, direct labor hours. Product D, labor hours. How many purchase orders we got? How many parts we got for each product? How many board etching we got for each product? And how many general factory machine hours we got for each product. Using the ABC data, determine the total amount of overhead costs assigned to each product. So we need to calculate the activity rate based on ABC system first, and then apply. So here we go. The activity based is based on labor related. Overhead cost is 156,000, 26,000 direct labor hours. That gives us $6 per direct labor hours. For purchase order, $50 per order. For parts, $800 per, parts management, $800 per $800 per, not setup, but per type, per types, per part types, something like that, not setup. Board etching, $45 per board, yes. And general factory is $9 per machine hours. Okay, we did this calculation. Very nice. Now it says for each product calculated. So the overhead assigned to each product, product A, we have labor related of, those rates are already calculated from here, right? Remember we did it, right? Okay, so here is the rate that we calculated. Here is the actual activity that happened, 6,000, 60, 30, 500, 30. So those are, when you are applying, you are always applying based on actual activity. When you are calculating the predetermined rate, you always use expected, estimated activity. Here is estimated cost divided by estimated activity. So both of them are estimated. Now you get the predetermined rate. But when you come to calculation, you use predetermined rate times actual activity. And actual activity is given. So don't make a mistake, say, oh, let me put this stuff from here. No, expected, you use just one time in here to calculate. But when you're going to apply, you always apply based on actual. So based on actual is 6,000 direct labor hours. And again, this is the estimated, but this is actual activity for product A. So don't mix up those actual activities. You have actual activities for every product. So here is provided to us that product A has 6,000 direct labor hours times 6, 60 orders times 50, 30 parts times 800, 500 boards times 45, 3,000 machine hours times 9, add them up. That's $112,500 of manufacturing overhead applied to product A. Okay. Now, how many units in product A we are making, I don't know. But if you want to know per unit of product A, then you divide 112,500 by number of units that you produced for product A, and that will give you manufacturing overhead per unit of product A. Same thing you do in product B. Same thing you do for product C. And same thing you do for product D. And now you know every product, how much has been applied for manufacturing overhead. So in here is $100,500 for product B. D, I mean D as a David. $112,000 manufacturing overhead applied to product C. $192,000 applied to product B. And $112,000 applied to product A. And that was problem exercise 4-5. Okay, hopefully you got the idea. See you next week for chapter 5. Email me if you have a question, or you can see me on my office hours. Have a good day. Bye-bye.